So, first of all, if you can just tell us a little bit about WhitPR.
Sure. So WhitPR is a boutique communications company here based in Newark. We work with clients that are in the small business space, nonprofit, and then we have corporate clients as well. So we help with everything from traditional media relations, pitching, media placements, to social media planning and engagement, as well as event activation.
Awesome. So, within those various things that you do, I think that there's a superpower that you have. Listen, I can't do it. So I think it's a superpower.
I think you haven't tried.
Maybe so.
A lot of people get scared by PR. So.
Maybe so, but if you were to say you had a special superpower,
oh God, okay.
What do you think that would be?
I don't take no easily. So I don't take the answer no easily. So like we have a lot of, and my assistant Kendra can attest to that, because we have a lot of times in media when you're pitching and you're pitching media outlets trying to get a story placed for your clients, they're just like, nah, not right time, delete, don't even answer your phone calls, or they just are non-responsive. So I very much equate PR to stalking. So I mean, it's not like a good thing, I guess, to correlate to, but like PR is basically stalking. You just have to like never give up, try different angles, try different times of the day to email, call, send an email, and just don't take no for answer. Like I had a producer tell me last week from the Today Show, basically that there wasn't enough space in the show for my client, Unique actually. And she was like, no, I think we closed out the loop for the month, Black History Month theme stories. And I was like, okay, last week. And then this week I was like, but you know what? She's actually here today. So is there anything that we can maybe finagle? And she was like, well, let's figure out something for the future. So it was a no, but I kind of turned it into a yes. And I do that same approach with all of my clients.
Awesome. And that grit, that perseverance, did you always have that, or did you develop it along the way?
Nah, I didn't always have it. I mean, probably with certain things, but when I started with PR, it was a bunch of like, me being in corporate America, hating my job, then just naively thinking like, oh, I'm gonna quit today, and I got people that said they're gonna be my clients, and they're gonna start paying me all this money, so I quit my job, and then the next day I'm knocking down the doors for these invoices, and they're like, yeah, we don't have it. And so that was the first like experience for me where I was like, oh, you gotta like pull up your big girl pants and like just make it work. And so, and then I've had clients that have been horrible clients who have just taught me all these lessons over the years that have developed me into this person that I am today when it comes to like managing my business.
Love it. I love it. So, in addition to those stories about invoices and being persistent and making sure you get your bag, secure the bag.
It's hard getting that bag, y'all. It's hard.
Can you give us, maybe an experience? Can you bring us into an experience where you had a problem within your business and you're able to overcome it?
I would say learning to step into being. And I hate this phrase. Like, I hate when people are like, you're a boss. Like, that. Like, be a boss. I hate that. But I had to learn how to be a boss and not a friend to my employees. Because, I'm the type, like, I just want everybody to come, have fun. We hang out, we listen to, like, trap music, we get the work done. But then it's like, when it's time for me to, like, sit down and, like, kind of reprimand or set guidelines, at first it was really hard for me to do. Because, like, at the end of the day, I just wanted I needed the help. And I wanted people to like working at WhitPR, and I didn't know how to necessarily be a leader and like a CEO and a manager of my business when it came to employees.
And now, as you've grown and you've evolved, what would you say one of your leadership philosophies is within your office?
Show by example. Like I can delegate work as much as I can delegate all day. but I feel like people on my team learn the best when they see me actually doing it. Like, if I'm just sitting there and saying, hey, I need to do this, this, and this, and this, and I know they have a ton of things on their plate, and I do too, obviously, but I'm going to jump in and help and lead by example and show them, like, hey, I know we said this list is for you to pitch, but I'm going to take half and do it so we can divide and conquer, sort of thing.
Love it. So, if you look around the room, there are a lot of students, and I know that, they know that you went from corporate to owning your own business, but can you take us back to Lincoln and share how your experience there helped you to go from corporate and eventually to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, when I started at Lincoln, I wanted to be, I was a political science major, and I wanted to get into politics. Like, I'm still into it very much, but, like, that's what I wanted to do. And my first poli-sci class, I came in, my teacher, like, had a very thick accent, and I was just like, I don't know what is happening right now. And I was like, but I love politics, and I still took those sort of classes, but I went back to what I really loved to do, which was writing. And so I was like, well, let me see what's under the umbrella of communications. And, at Lincoln at the time, a lot of the comms classes were just like if you wanted to be a journalist or you wanted to be a TV producer, but there was like a few courses that really talked about public relations and marketing, so I really leaned into that. And then I found some internships while I was in college to kind of just help me build on those experiences that I was learning in class. But when I graduated, when you graduate, everybody's like, I need to go get a paying job. Like, I need to make some money.
Yes.
So that's what I did. I started out of college working for a small nonprofit in Jersey City called the Central Avenue Special Improvement District. And basically what we did was we did marketing and PR campaigns for small mom and pop shops as they were competing with the big chain retailers that were coming to the area. So I would walk up and down the street every day, knock on doors, and ask, like, how can we help with marketing? And then finally I was like, okay, this is not making enough coin for me. And I went to American Express.
Nice. So for those in here who are in the room who are thinking about starting a business, can you take us back to your first client?
Okay. Yeah. My first client was actually a non-paying client. It's my best friend Tiffany, who is still probably one of my most popular clients now. Her name's Tiff. She goes by the Budgetista. And we were friends. Like, at the time that I started my business, she was starting her business. She had just got laid off, I believe, right, Trace? That's Tiffany's sister. She had just got laid off from her job. And Tiffany and her sisters grew up in a household where money was openly discussed because their father was a CPA. Fact checking. And the way she thought and talked about money was something I've never experienced, and a lot of our friends didn't. So I was like, you should turn this into something. And so that's kind of how we started. And I started with no clients except for Tiffany that were paying. I had no media contacts, and I really had no roadmap on how to start a business or how to be a publicist, because every single job that I was trying to get in PR when I was working in corporate America and still looking was trying to offer me internships. And by then I had an apartment, I had a car, I was like, I have bills. I can't be nobody's intern. And so we just kind of figured it out together.
So that was the basis for the next question. So for those of you around in the room, it's going to be important for you to, as you start a business, look around you and see who's next to you and figure out ways that you all can work with each other to build. Because, Dreena's a perfect example of how working with people you trust and who are hard workers can help turn into something that's beautiful. So you started there. How did you transition to start getting paid clients?
Word of mouth. My first paid client was North Now, which was a nonprofit founded by former mayor, now presidential candidate, Cory Booker. And I knew the executive director at the time, LeVar Young, just in passing. And one day he was like, hey, we work with a firm, we pay them a lot of money, but they don't really provide results. Can you come in and like do like a snapshot of what you can provide us and come up with a budget? And I didn't know what I was doing. I may be charging like $1,000 a month. I'm like, how am I living off of that? But I was just like, let me get my first paid client. And then, because I was thinking like, this will be my first one, then others will come, and that's exactly how it happened. Me working with LeVar, and I worked with them for about 2 years. I upped my invoice, of course. But I worked with them for about 2 years, and then I met his cousin, who was chief of staff for Corey, and still is very close with him now, and he's the one that brought me in-house. After I was still working with other clients.
Love it. So, you've worked in various sectors, from governmental, public, private. What would you say has allowed? How have you been able to help your clients can remain authentic and also create a message that's attractive and powerful at the same time?
Well, with me, now I'm very selective about the type of clients that we work with at WhitPR. I have to really feel like I can do a good job on behalf of them, and that I have to really attach onto their story, their mission, their vision for their personal brand or company. If I feel like it'll be a waste of time on both ends, I normally don't do it. And so then once we sign on a client, I always look at the year. So as everyone knows, each month there's a specific theme. So like January, everybody's talking about new body, new finances, like new year, new you. And so I kind of like pull in like their elements of their story and try to tie it into like monthly themes. And then I think about, okay, what is the press writing about for each of these months? And then as we secure interviews, we create talking points for each interview to like really tie into their story, but also make it appealing to the readers and viewers or listeners. So it's a lot of different elements with trying to make somebody appear authentic.
Right.
Even if they are
right.
already.
So what would be your definition of a personal brand?
What do you mean?
How do you define brand? And I ask that because everybody in here, whether or not they know it or not, has a brand. A lot of times people don't really realize that and take an active role in creating it. So just from your opinion, how do you define a brand?
A personal brand. I mean, and I see this a lot with folks who are in like that millennial age bracket. I guess I'm in that too, kind of. I don't know. When does that age end?
I don't know. It's really
but like folks who are in that millennial age bracket who, like, prime example, when they're reaching out for jobs or internships or whatever, the first thing I do is I Google search their name. So if I Google search your name, your Instagram, your social media handles will come up, right? So you really have to be cognizant of what you're posting on those platforms, because I'm not just doing that. Every single employer is going to do that. So if I go to your page, well, I'm not going to say it, but if I go to a potential candidate's page, and they're in like bikinis and like, just crazy postings or whatever, I'm more inclined not to hire them, because just looking at like every single element that's on, the internet is part of your personal brand. It's not just what you see in front of you here. You have to think about your website, what you post on social media, like your Facebook posts, your blog posts. All those things will follow you, and so you really have to be cognizant of what you're posting and sharing, because that all ties into who your personal brand, like what your personal brand is. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. So for those in here who don't have a personal brand or an accurate story that they're telling online.
Well, I'm pretty sure everybody here has a personal brand, right? So who all has a social media page in here, right? So if you go and look at, what y'all posting? What are you posting? Because that all ties into your personal brand. Especially like as you guys are getting ready to they're all about to graduate.
They're very. Some are.
Okay. As you're thinking about graduation and your next phase of your career, all of that stuff will follow you. Even when you're like starting a business. Like you can delete things and think it'll be gone, but it's still there. So you just like, I know it's a thing, like it's hard to think about, but like even now, you really just have to be mindful. Okay, if I'm really going to start a business in like 5-10 years, and you just have to think about how, like, even think about like Kevin Hart when he posted about when they were considering him for the Oscars, and then they found these old tweets about like he tweeted like years ago. Like that's part of his personal brand because he wrote that however many years ago. It still followed him. So you just have to really be like cautious around what you're posting and sharing because it all follows you.
Absolutely.
We live in such a digital age now where it's like every little thing.
And it's, like you said, something that you cannot erase.
Like I look at my old, like I was never posting anything crazy, but I look at old like press releases I used to post and I was like, who wrote this?
Right.
Like from years ago when I first started, but it's still living on the internet. And it's attached to my brand.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: I assume that, not even assume, I know that with all the success that you've been able to accomplish, you have some habits. So if you can give us, three of your daily habits that you do to help get you in a rhythm, in a zone as you go about your business day.
Sure. Every morning, every night, I write out my to-do list for the next day. Like I love a notebook. I write it down, everything I want to accomplish for the next day. Every morning I pray, and then every day I bring my notebook to cross off all of my to-dos. I like to see. I'm a visual person, so I like to see what I know I need to do right in front of me so I can cross it off. It makes me feel accomplished, and then lets me know that I'm keeping track of things that I know are due, like proposals. Those are the death of me, but I have to write them all out and know that I'm crossing them off to get it done. And then we create, like in the business, we create plans for each of our clients to help us keep track of like goals we're setting for them and just for ourselves as we're trying to obtain precedence for them. So that helps us be successful as well.
And so another question is, being that every client is unique, every client is different. If you could, let me backtrack. I'll come back to that question. So as far as PR, everybody in here, we said has a brand. For those who are starting companies, if you don't have somebody who's in your corner as PR, marketing, where can somebody with, say, not a big budget, college student budget, start in building their business?
When it comes to PR?
PR, yeah.
You can do it yourself. Like a lot of editors, freelancers, like they have a lot of their contact information on their social media handles. So you can always reach out to them that way. Whereas like we have a database that I pay for quarterly where it shares like contact information for everyone from like MSNBC to the Wendy Williams show to CNN to wherever. So when you're starting out and you don't have the budget to do that, because a lot of people don't, and they don't have the budget to hire publicists, I highly suggest following editors and writers from some of the target publications that you want to be featured in, and then figure out like what's your hook, your story, and your pitch to them. Like make it good, and then a lot of them have like on Instagram now they have the email, and they just give you their email right then and there. You can reach out to them that way. Send them DMs. Some of them still answer DMs. Comment on some of their posts, and like we live in such a digital age now, it's not that hard to engage the media that you want to engage on behalf of your business.
Can you go? So when you talked about your hook, your pitch, and your story, can you define each of those and help us understand those?
So a hook, like when the media is thinking about stories that you see on a daily basis on TV or in the publications, there's always a hook to it when I'm pitching, right? So Unique, for example, the boxes that you saw, she has this brand called Because of Them We Can, which basically she started out of her home with her kids. She would dress her kids up as like prominent Black history figures and heroes, and like do a whole photo spread on them, and she would share it on like digitally, and it would go viral. So as an extension of that, she created these subscription boxes for kids where it focuses each month on a hero or a Black History Month theme to teach them Black History Month beyond February. So ideally, you should start pitching that in December for a February placement. But Unique just hired me and my team like maybe a few weeks ago. So we're already in the middle of February. And so the hook really is Black History Month. And her brand is all about Black history. So it's really just curating a pitch that falls into the theme of the month and the news hub that folks are looking to like fill stories in for like their shows or their publications. But like I said, ideally you want to reach out in like December, not in February when things are already booked up.
And typically for the length of a story, I know everybody's busy. So what does the length look like?
You mean like when you're pitching? It should only be about 2 paragraphs because folks don't have time to read. Especially editors, they get bombarded with email, like thousands of emails on a day. And same thing with producers, so keep it short and sweet. So then they can just read it on their phone, like right in that screen and don't have to scroll, and that'll be helpful.
Okay. As far as some of the next projects that you have for WhitPR, I know that through my research, you're starting.
Through my research.
Through my research,
Okay.
you're going to be starting another, not company, but another arm of a WhitPR where you're helping people to learn how to do PR themselves.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, because I get a lot of business owners that can't necessarily afford the monthly retainer of a publicist. And then a lot of them have had really bad experiences with publicists, just like taking their money and not doing anything. So I'm the type of person that likes to help regardless. So we'll get a lot of potential clients emailing, and like I said, they don't have the budget, and I don't like to just like leave them feeling like they had a call with me without any sort of like tangible thing to take home and like implement into their business. So I created this thing called the WhitPR Collective. Not this thing. I created this digital school called the WhitPR Collective, which is basically a 3-month cohort of about 15 students who are entrepreneurs, and I teach them the basics of PR. So like how to like write a press release, how to write a pitch. I give them I give them examples. I give them tips and tools that I use, and then we implement at the business, and that has been proven to be successful.
So that's huge in the sense that it's going to increase the amount of people that you're able to touch, effectively assisting them within their business, and it also adds another stream of revenue. So I have to ask you, how important is it for you within your business and for other business owners when they think about their business to look at the main part, but also think about other arms and streams of revenue?
I was just talking to my bookkeeper about this morning about having a revenue mix because in PR specifically, as you come to the end of the year, like we just like at the end of 2018, a lot of clients that I had, their contracts were ending, or they were wanting to pause and reevaluate the strategy and like dollars they can allocate to PR for the next year, because PR isn't like an instant business. You can sign on. You can't necessarily sign on for 3 months and think in 3 months I'm going to be on Good Morning America. A lot of people think that, but that's cute, but like it's not realistic. Sometimes it takes at least 3 months for the media to even know who you are. So at the end of the month, at the end of the year, we were like, okay, things are slowing up. We really need to. And with the WhitPR Collective, I really was like nervous about even releasing it and sharing it because I didn't think people would really be into it. So my bookkeeper was like, we really need to like do a hardcore push with the WhitPR Collective just so you can have that cushion for when things are slow with clients, which happens with any business. But when you have overhead, like I have an office, I have payroll, I have insurance for my employees that I have to cover in case of my slips and falls, and just the daily operations, that can cut a lot into like the income that you're receiving from clients. So you have to have that cushion just for when like you're in a low, like kind of where we were just coming out of. So it's very important, regardless of your business.
Say that one more time.
Regardless of the type of your business, because you can be out here in these streets.
So, what have? So, I'm sure there are a lot of lessons that you learned throughout the journey.
Yeah.
What have you had to unlearn and also relearn in order to bring success? Yep. So basically, if you think about maybe a habit or a leadership style or something that was a golden rule to you, or a rule to you before that you followed and it worked, but you had to relearn another strategy in order to move your business past where it had been towards where you're going.
Like I mentioned earlier about leadership when it came to my employees and like being a friend versus a boss, like Lord, versus like a leader. I had to learn, because I've had assistants where it was like super friendly and then they did the most outrageous things like steal client lists and like wipe computers clean, and then that made me very guarded when it came to the next person, you know? So I had to relearn how, I had to unlearn being so friendly with everyone and then relearn being friendly, but also being a strong leader at the same time, if that makes sense. So like I said, I really want WhitPR to be like a fun place where we get things done, and I think we are in that space now. Right? And it took a while for me to learn how to, let my guard down and still like be friendly, but also make sure we get the job done.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge for me as well.
Right?
Yeah, no,
it's hard.
Yeah.
And also like not taking everything so personal when it came to my business. PR is such a very personal business. A lot of my clients end up being like my friends at the end of the day, but you can take a lot of stuff personally because it's such a personal business. And learning like it's not always like learning that it's not always about you. Folks like think about how I come in like some days where I'm just like going through it with stuff at home. Same thing applies to my clients, and then when it comes to their needs and goals for PR, sometimes like it's a tough business, man, just because people have these high expectations as it relates to PR, and then if they're not seeing traction like a month after they decide, like it's a tough business. So learning not to take everything so personally, just because folks have this preconceived notion about PR. So I really work on demystifying that process when folks first come on and letting them know, like, hey, next month you're not going to be in residency. It may happen because it has been, but like you got to know it takes time. And so learning not to take those frustrations from a client personally. That makes sense?
Makes sense. So, you've been recognized by Essence, you had a spotlight on LinkedIn. They spotlighted you as a publicist to look out for. In your other outlets as well. For the next, 5 years, do you have any? What do you expect the year will be? What's your goal, vision?
The vision and the goal is just to continue to do good work. Honestly, like I've never been like even this today, and then it's like not a huge crowd, but I was like, even the day I was like, do we want to do this? I like really staying behind the scenes and just getting the work done. So for the next 5 years, that's just the goal, to have like a stronger client base, like really cool and fun clients coming out great work, and just keep at it.
And as far as balance, that's a tough. So everybody in here needs to look at what their balance is and figure out a way to balance. But I can imagine, you wear many hats. What do you do? What do you do for yourself? Like to
Well, right now,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay.
not take some of my time, but I really want to devote all my time and attention to him. So maybe it's just sitting home watching Transylvania or something. I don't know. I like me time right now is just chilling at home with my computer closed and my phone off.
Yeah, that disconnected from your phone. That's a superpower right there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have. I don't have it down pat.
I don't either. I like go on airplane mode for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, let me just see what's
Jump on the plane real quick.
happening.
All right. So I'm gonna, we're gonna open it up for questions from anybody in the room.
Yeah. You said that you used to work in corporate America. How did you balance your time with your actual job in corporate America and building up your business?
I would build my business at night, and then I would also it's not good, but I would sneak during the day, like lunch breaks and all that, to kind of focus on the PR too. Yeah. No.
Behind.
That's a good question.
What was your greatest failure? What did you do in order to get back on your feet?
My greatest failure. Ooh. Oh my God, I have to think about this one. There's like a few. I think I had an office space in Lincoln Park, and I think I signed up to get that office before I was really ready to. So I didn't really have a realistic view of the income and the finances for WhitPR at the time. I was just like, I need an office. Every business owner has an office or needs a place to go into every day. And so I jumped out the window and got an office, had it furnished, and then maybe 6 months down the line, I couldn't afford my rent because the clients were slow to come in, and I didn't have a finance person at the team at that time. So my biggest lesson, and then I had, it was a whole bunch of things. I had clients write me bad checks and things like that. So out of all of that, I would say the biggest lesson that I learned to that was have a solid money person on your team who you trust and you could talk to every day, and who will really be mindful of what your goals are and help you keep track of the finances and everything coming in to help accomplish that.
How were you able to build the team?
How was I able to build a team?
Yeah.
A lot of it was word of mouth. I barely post on social or anything that I'm hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, when I was looking for assistants, I would just ask my core network, hey, you know anybody? And that's how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now I post on Indeed and all of that, but initially it was just asking my immediate group of fellow entrepreneurs who knew people.
How did you overcome your fears while starting your own business?
How did I overcome my fears of starting a business? I think I was just naive, and I just jumped out the window. So there was no room for me to be scared until I got there, and I was on the verge of being evicted. And I was like, oh, this is when I should be scared. And plus, I had a really great support system at the time. So when I started, I was just naive, this is gonna work. I'm about to be out in these streets popping, and then you hit a down part.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So, I've worked in a similar setting, right? Because I did media. So, my specific expertise was multicultural, more with Hispanic demographics, but then I also did AA, Asian, and LGBTQ. So, does your agency focus on a specific niche or demographic or type of client?
Well, when we first started, a lot of our clients were African American and really African American women, just because I felt and I still feel sometimes we get, not sometimes, all the time, we get brushed under the carpet and our stories aren't told. And I know some really dope women doing some amazing things. So my vision was always just to let me just help you get your story out. And that's how I started. And then as I started growing, I was like, well, I don't want to just be pigeonholed into the African American space. And just because I just didn't want to be that African American PR girl. And
The brand,
then,
right, that you talk about.
right. But then the business kept coming, and like that's where I proved to be the most successful. I take on all types of clients, but majority of my roster is like Black women and Black men who have really dope, cool ideas, or like their stories aren't being told, or they're being, like one of my clients is Patrice Cullors, and she's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter. And a lot of people didn't even know Black Lives Matter was founded by 3 Black women. They always thought it was that guy D-Ray who wears a blue vest. Then you only know him because he has a blue vest, which he's very smart about. And so I really latched onto her because I was like, what? You did what? And nobody knows? And so it's just always, it doesn't matter what race you are, but that's just how a lot of my client onboarding happens. It's just like, tell me your story. And I'm like, what? And then I'm excited to help and work with you. So a lot of my roster has been African-American women, but we work with everyone.
It's like knowing your strong suit, right?
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned in regards to working for American Express and being unhappy. So if you could share with us your experiences there and what forced you or what led you to leave. I know that you had this, interest in PR and wanting to do that, but what was that thing that was kind of driving you out?
It wasn't I loved American Express. Like, I was a temp there, and they, when you first graduate college, you're very impatient, and like you're just like, I want a full-time job, I need benefits, I don't have time to be anybody's temp. And that's kind of the space I was in. So I worked at American Express as a temp for a few years, and then I got offered a full-time job at Great Global Group, which is an advertising and PR company. And they put me in a role where I was doing direct marketing. So you know all those like junk letters that you get in the mail, like you've been pre-approved for however much. I was sending those. So I was working with the paper manufacturer, like the card creation team, and like sending those letters out to people. And I hated it. I had a very unsupportive boss who just wasn't. She wasn't supportive, but also she wasn't the type that would help me learn different aspects of the business. And I had it shared with her, like I wanted to grow within Gray. I wanted to maybe move over to the creative side, and then maybe move into the corporate comm side, and she wasn't having it. And like, the money was great, but I would wake up every morning and dread going in. And it's like I have to go into the city, I have to get on the subway, and I have to deal with these crazy people in the office. And just one day I was like, I can't take it anymore. Like I would be crying in the bathroom sometimes, not just because I loathed my job that much, but I knew this is not the place for me. And so I just quit my job with no backup plan, and I was like, I'm starting with PR, and that was it.
I've been there. How do you compete with the Grays, the Edelmans, and of the world, the big guys?
I don't do a lot of, and this is like one piece that I'm trying to focus on for 2019 is business development and like putting out RFPs and that. I don't do a lot of that. A lot of the business that comes to me is organic. People just reach out and say, hey, I heard you're dope. I heard your team is dope. Like, can you put together a proposal? Can we hop on a call for a conversation? So a lot of the companies like Gray and Prudential's Comms teams, they'll like subcontract work to me, which is fine. Competing with those guys is like a whole different animal. Like those guys get paid like $18,000 a month sometimes just to do things like write one press release. And so, yeah, it's crazy. So I don't necessarily compete with them. I've learned to just stay in my own lane and just focus on doing the work, and the work will come to me.
Now, going back to your experience with having that manager or supervisor not really being there as a support, right? And really, the way that I see leadership is that you shouldn't be afraid of your team taking over your job.
Yeah.
They're supporting you, and then they're allowing you to take on more work. Have you adapted? I know that the way the environment of your agency is right now, you like it to be light and fun, etc. I'm sure you've adapted a lot of things from that experience into yours.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the other type of leadership, kind of the culture, besides being light and fun? What other type of culture or environment?
Well, I lead by example when it comes to actually doing the work. I don't like not invite my team into meetings or on like press trips with clients because at the end of the day I can't be everywhere. So I'm essentially training them to be there when I can't be there. So that's not like me doing that is not thinking like, oh, they're gonna come and steal my client and like steal the company one day. It's me training them to be a strong publicist and a strong team member of WhitPR to ultimately help me get another client like this one. You know? So training them and providing them with the tools that can help them be successful and be Dreena when Dreena's not there. Because a lot of clients are always like, oh, I just want Dreena. Can you come with me here? Can you do this? And it's like, that's no way to be successful. I can't do any and everything, so that's why I have a team. And I don't think my old boss kind of knew that, like, when it came to her leadership skills, but, like, I'm trying to take those lessons from her and implement it in WhitPR so we can be successful.
What is some advice, you had mentioned that you kind of left that job or plan, right? What's some advice that you can give folks that may experience that, first job or maybe, down the line where they're unhappy, they don't see themselves there in that environment? What kind of advice?
I would say, like, if you are unhappy in your job and you are thinking about quitting or starting your own company, like, build up your savings account because that's one thing I did not do when I started with PR. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna be fine. No, build up, like, if you're really serious about starting a business and you have a job where you have a steady paycheck coming in every week or every 2 weeks, take a portion of that and put into a savings account for your business to help with startup costs and just general operation costs for like the first 6 months because you may not get your big client for the first 6 months or a year. So really think about your finances when it comes to starting your business because a lot of us that started, when I started, we weren't thinking about that. So that may be Tiffany. Right? Any other questions? Yeah.
So, how did you learn about starting a business? Like, how were you researching this for?
You said, how did I learn about starting a
Yeah.
business? I didn't. I just learned as I went through trial by fire. So I learned. I didn't even know how to do a contract when I started with PR. I was Googling contract templates, and those were my first contracts. I mean, that wasn't the best move, but it worked for the time being. Now I have a lawyer that does the contracts and gave me a template. Same thing with having an accountant, bookkeeper, and all of that. I didn't have any of that when I started. It was just literally going through the years of not doing things the right way or the correct way as it relates to starting a business. Helped me develop the core team that I have outside of WhitPR to help me run WhitPR. And I read a lot. I Googled, I read articles, I read books to kind of just help me get started. You have this, right?
What's the number one mistake or error that you've seen in pitches, either through emails or in person?
PR pitches?
Yes.
Not personalizing the pitch. So one thing that I'm very big on is making sure your pitches are personalized and that you've done the actual research on the person that you're pitching. Because just think about when somebody is sending a marketing email to you, and it just feels like a blanket email, like it's just an email they'll send to you, they'll send to her, and it's not really personal to you. You're not going to be inclined to even respond or open it or even click the link, right? So the number one mistake that, outside of grammatical errors, because you have to always check that, is the number one error I see is that folks not personalizing the pitch as it relates to media.
And what about in person?
I mean, in person, just keeping it short and sweet. A lot of people want to tell their life story, and it's you gotta go.
My question?
You have a question?
It was basically what she said. I was going to ask if you've had any mentors or different networks of support that helped you along the way.
I have. When I started out, initially, I didn't.
Mhm.
And then I met two women from Prudential who were VPs of communications positions there. They did very similar work to what I do, and they kind of just took me under their wing and like really helped me get like some corporate clients or bring me into rooms that I necessarily may have not been invited into, or events that I didn't get the invite to. They would just bring me in, and like they have been really helpful. Like I could still call them today when it comes to like something as it relates to business, or as it relates to a pitch for a client, or a horrible client, because we all get those, and they're just amazing.
Were there any days that you wanted to give up in your company?
What?
In the beginning, like it was rough.
Last week.
What topic is that?
And if so, like, how did you deal with it, and how did you make yourself stronger?
So I'm always the person that if I feel like we going down a tunnel and it's like it's about to be the end, I'm like, well, I'll just go look for a job, even though I hate, like, I've learned my lesson now. Like, I cannot be in a corporate job just because when I'm there, I'm like, I could do it better than this person. But very early on, when things were bad with the business, I had picked up a part-time job working at Short Hills Mall in J. Crew just to make money until like things popped off for WhitPR. You have to be like scrappy when you're starting out, and like, okay, if this is not working right now, let me figure out a way that I can at least bring some money in to like get like the business up, like the cost okay, or I can actually survive and eat lunch or something. And then just prayer and have a really supportive system, because even today when I'm like, yo, I'm about to go look for a job, my husband will be like, I'm not letting you do that. My best friends are like, yeah, girl, okay. And then, you know, everyone's like, you're not doing that.
Thank you.
Just having different, like, you know, if you're starting out in the business in the very beginning and it's like tough, just focus on the end goal, but also like get that part-time job to help until, you know, it takes off.
Thank you.
So I know that some students in the room with various years, but I'm sure somebody here is interested in finding out about internships. Do you ever offer any internships?
All the time.
And where can students contact you?
They can follow me on social media at Dreena WhitPR, or they can visit whitpr.com, or they can email me at Dreena, Dreena, at whitpr.com.
I was gonna ask, you mentioned the clients, right? The bad clients. What are some of the things that you're exposed to? You know, those are realities. Not everyone is gonna be the perfect client. So, can you share us a little story?
I have a few. No, I'm kidding. I do have a few, but I've had clients. Sometimes clients are so successful in their business that they think they should be successful in the press. And those two things don't always match up. And I had a client who was I'm trying to think of how I can explain her without saying who it is. A lot of people won't know, whatever. She's in a male-dominated field where she was the only woman a lot of times. She was extremely successful, and that success led to her like not having a personal life at all. So it was always business all day, every day, like 24/7. And so she would treat me as like a confidant for PR and like personal stuff, but then she would also act. She was also older than me, and so she would also act that I was her daughter sometimes. So she was one of my highest paying clients at a time. So I was like, let me just keep it on. Let me just stay here so I can give a check. But she was very verbally abusive and didn't understand the process of PR. So she just wanted to be, when Oprah had her show on Oprah, because she thought she was the most amazing person in the world. And then eventually got to the point where I was like, you know, I don't think it's the best idea for us to continue to work together. And that was a hard thing for me to do because, like I said, she was one of my highest paying clients. So me letting her go was going to be extremely hurtful to my business. And so when I told her that, she said, "Are you effing kidding me?" and hung up on me.
Wow.
And then for like the next 3 years, anybody that thought about hiring me that she knew, she would tell them not to hire me because I didn't want to work with her. And then I've also just learned to like see red flags when it comes to clients, especially when it comes. This is why you gotta have a good money team, because before I used to just be like, oh, like I'll take personal checks or whatever. I was doing that. And somebody wrote me a check that bounced.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that in my life. And and then they proceeded to lie about it. And so now that's why I have a person on my team who's like, we only accept ACH. Like, these lessons help me, like, have the team that I have now. So, like, WhitPR runs like a ship when it comes to clients. You know, just clients that have unrealistic expectations are always, like, a red flag for me. So that's why I'm very, like, when we have that client onboarding, I'm very, like, tapped into, okay, so what are your goals? I really explain, like, 3 months is not going to be where you're already on TV or in a magazine or on the radio. That's, like, the learning period. So that has also been a result of working with clients who are after a month, like, why haven't I been featured here? So I've had clients that kind of just run the gamut, that have been abusive, that, like, don't have realistic expectations when it comes to finances. PR, and then their budgets aren't tight, and they don't necessarily have the funding to hire publicists, even though they're locked in the contracts.
So this has been awesome. It's 3:40, 41. I just want everybody to just give Dreena a hand clap. It's a small token. A lot of appreciation. We have nice little Rutgers mug, as well as listen, you can write down your big ideas.
I love the book.
And it's red.
And it's red. And this is for Gabe.
Oh,
so he can break something in the house.
He's gonna be breaking.
No,
it.
listen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
thanks, guys. I hope that was nice. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we have about less than 10 minutes, but if you all want to, connect, please do so. And once again, we really appreciate you making the time out of your schedule to be here with us.
Thank you.
Do you mind if